If you've been paying attention to the Ocean City real estate market, you may have noticed that prices have not slowed down. They've actually continued to increase, all while other markets around the country have flattened out or declined for the most part. In today's video, I want to answer a question that I got a lot this week. Why is Ocean City staying so strong while the other markets struggle? Before I answer that, I want to get one thing out of the way. Now, I've heard a million times that back in 2007 and 8, really the decline started out on the West Coast before it worked its way back east about 6 months later. And the market out on the West Coast has been declining for some period of time, depending on the area between 6 and about 12 months. So one may think that patterns will repeat. Here we should see declines as well. But I want to tell you exactly why I don't expect that to be the case. And there are three main reasons. Now, the one I harp on every chance that I have gotten this year, and that is that people who own here, most of them have a below 4% mortgage rate, and it simply doesn't make sense for them to do the normal upgrade that happens here in town. Every 3 to 5 years, historically, like clockwork, a substantial chunk of homeowners here in Ocean City will change. They'll upgrade. Either that's to a condo or to a single family home. And we just don't see that happening anymore. The amount of clients and people that I talk to who don't have the financial wherewithal to stomach that multiple $1,000s a month change, they're holding pat. They're going to stay put with what they have and where they are. And that's where a lot of our inventory comes from, ends up kind of circling within itself. And that's how we get a lot of our activity. And we're way down year over year in terms of our volume. And that's not a surprise to me. But again, I don't foresee that changing unless mortgage rates go back down really to the low fives or even below that to really make that an appealing thing to do. And that really jumps right into number two as well, because those mortgage rates are starting to inch down again. I'm starting to see projections that we should be in the fives by the end of the year. And whether or not that comes true, only time will tell. But every juncture where we would have thought that buyers would have a reason to take a step back, we've gotten more good news that's made it a little bit more friendly, a little less scary to move forward and buy here. So again, we are a microcosm of a lot of other markets. I have agent friends who are in North Jersey, Central Jersey, and their markets are honestly not that different from ours, which brings us to number three. Again, inventory is incredibly low. We've lost sight of what that means. It's very easy to have short-term memory and think just a few years back what things looked like, right? We actually had lower inventory last year than we do now. So we must be higher. It must be easier. There must be more incentive for sellers to sell. But that's not the case. Even though we've increased, it's so hard to acknowledge and really see just how far we've fallen from the traditional inventory levels. We lose sight of that. I do too. And we are still less than half of our normal inventory, roughly half. And without that changing, without an influx of inventory, and hate to break it to you, but a lot of the development that's really started in the 90s is really the first decade where we started seeing a lot of single families being torn down and duplexes going up. I'm not saying it's done. It's certainly not. There's still cottages and older buildings that will likely come down in the future. But I think the pace of development where we are taking one building and turning it into two, I think that has slowed down and will continue to slow down. The metrics just don't necessarily support developers doing a whole lot of that. The land value has gotten so high, but still people are only willing to pay so much for a 3 or a 4 bedroom condo, to the math not necessarily making as much sense as you may think. Now, along those lines, again, I think we're going to see something here in the single family market because there's too much new construction out there that's sitting for something not to change. And if developers get scared, if things don't work out the way that they had expected that to or planned them to, then they simply may pull back on the reins. And if developers pull back on the reins, do you think that's going to help with our inventory or hurt inventory? So as you can see here with the three reasons that I mentioned, and again, that's due to the golden handcuffs of having a low mortgage rate. That is mortgage rates that continue to inch downwards versus going back up towards the sevens where they were in the fall. And then we have extremely low inventory here in the market. And again, based on people's dreams being here, their families, their generational memories being here, this isn't a normal market where there's a lot of turnover where you can say, hey, the school year's coming to an end, or job relocations. That's such a small portion of what happens here that it's really insignificant from a statistical standpoint. People are going to hold on. These are generational or multi-generational properties, and people have gotten comfortable with that. There's really not much that's going to make them budge. besides, you guessed it, a very high price. So I hope this has helped shed some light on why here in Ocean City, I think things are holding out very strongly, a little bit more so than I had expected. And again, if you were to look at one particular market or a group of markets, you have to look beyond the metrics. You have to look at things like politics, like zoning restrictions. There's so much that goes into why markets boom or bust or grow or shrink, that you can't really generalize on the whole, like a lot of headlines try to do. Every real estate market is hyper local. You need to be familiar with what's going on to really get a firm understanding, so that you can understand what the likely outcomes may be and when change may come. So that's it for today. I appreciate you, as always, hanging out with me. And if you haven't already, most of the viewers and view time comes from non-subscribed people. So do me a favor, hit subscribe down below, and this will tell YouTube to share this message with more people. That will help my message get out there, and I will be very appreciative. So thanks again. I'll see you on the next video.